Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. My guest today is Beth Miller. She's the author of Are You Talent Obsessed? And she's the CEO of a company called Executive Velocity. And what she does is she specializes in helping people hire well. And in my opinion, even though in the middle of the coronavirus, as we're recording this today, hiring still is a big deal and will likely become a bigger deal when we come out of it, because I'm afraid we're probably going to lose a whole bunch of our employees who have been shut down. They found someplace else to go. So instead of me yammering on, let me bring Beth on and we'll start the conversation. Hey, Beth, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Josh. Thanks so much for inviting me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So here's where I want to start. You gave me a bunch of things that we could talk about, and one of them I found absolutely fascinating. So we need to start there, which is how to attract applicants with a job posting.
Yeah.
So I definitely have my opinion about it, but I'm really anxious to hear yours.
Well, my opinion is first, don't start with a job description. I find a lot of companies that I work with are mostly small to mid-sized companies, so they may have an HR department or they may outsource that. But what they generally do is they take the job description and cut and paste onto a job board or a search engine of some sort. That is failure. What you need to be thinking about is that you're selling your company and you're selling the opportunity to work for your company. So what the job posting should be is a marketing. It's getting the person excited about your company, the impact that this position has on the company's success, and what that position needs for success. So one of the things that I talk about in my training is that you need to connect with the reader. So the statement would be, you are exuberant with customers versus exuberance is required or whatever. It's
Right.
connecting with the individual.
So this fits in with job descriptions being terrible.
Yes.
Because what most people do is a job description is actually a laundry list of things they want their people to do.
Yes.
It's not success factors. There's, when you really look at somebody's work, you're only going to look at 3 to 5 things that they have to do to be successful in the job.
Yeah.
If it's more than that, there's no way for the person who's doing the job to be able to know what to focus on.
Correct.
My belief is there's 2 things that need to be in this job posting. One is, what are the success factors for the job? And 2, what are the values of the company, or how does this job fit into the company's values?
Yes, the values are really important. I totally agree with you, Josh. That's something that even once you get people into the pipeline, candidates into the pipeline, you need to be really clear about what kind of behavioral questions you're asking that will get you to understand if their values align with yours.
Okay, when you say behavioral questions, what do you mean by that, Beth?
So those are questions that generally aren't questions. They generally start with, tell me about a time. Right. Share an experience with me. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to understand how they behaved in the past to a specific situation. So for instance, how did you handle a change that you had no control over?
That's a good one. And I would say I would change it a little bit, just because I don't like to ask how do you questions, because that sort of narrows down. I said, tell me a story about a time.
Yeah, that's not a great way. Yeah.
And the reason I like that is what I'm looking for when I'm hiring somebody. I want to hear the stories they have, because the stories are going to reveal how well they're going to fit into my values.
Yes.
You know,
Now, they'll
Lem-
also reveal things like, their emotional intelligence.
yes,
Are they able to admit to mistakes and learn from those mistakes? Are they able to work in a team environment
yes,
and and support others? Yeah.
yes. So what I like to have people do who are setting up we use a thing called the will do, can do, fit factor method of hiring, which
Okay.
is from Robert Half and Associates. He wrote this book probably 40 years ago, and I used it in my vending company very successfully. Before we started using this system, we had a 35% success rate with hiring. After we installed it, it went up to 85%.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a process. It didn't happen overnight, obviously. But
Right.
what we learned is that when we're asking questions, especially around values, what we call fit factors,
Mm-hmm.
how well will the person fit into the company, is what we want to do is make sure we're asking open-ended questions that speak to a particular value.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. One of my favorite, it actually is my core value, which is personal responsibility.
Mm.
So I would always ask someone, say, tell me about a time when something at your last job didn't go so well.
Yeah.
And stop.
Right.
Now, the answer to that question, I haven't really, by doing that, I haven't led them on what I'm looking for an
No.
answer,
Right.
which is what too many people do in the interview.
Right. Too many people lead the witness.
Right. So instead, what I'm asking for is, I want to hear if they say, I could have done something differently, or it was their fault.
Right.
And if I heard it was their fault, they were immediately eliminated from consideration for the job.
Yeah.
Because they weren't being personally responsible. And to get somebody to do that would be really difficult in my world.
Right. Oh, totally. You can't change attitude. You can teach skills, but you can't change attitude.
Well, I have once or twice in my, I used to have a company, 90 employees, and maybe 2 or 3 times we actually got somebody to change and understand why a value is important and start exhibiting it.
Yeah.
That was out of a couple hundred people that rolled through the company over those 20 years.
And it's hard. You're spending a lot of time trying to shift somebody's values. Whereas if at the beginning you're screening for those values, then your energy isn't being moved in a direction that isn't really providing kind of the growth and value, especially as a leader, a CEO.
Yes. So what happens there is you're just working too hard, and that's how you get brilliant jerks in your company.
Right, exactly.
You might be hiring, and most companies do this, which I think is a mistake, is that most companies hire for technical skills,
yes,
not for the activities they need to do or the values that they exhibit.
And the emotional intelligence.
And the emotional intelligence.
Yeah, that is highly correlated to success. The good thing about emotional intelligence, though, is you can improve it. It's not like IQ. So.
No, absolutely. But the challenge comes in, does the business owner have emotional intelligence themselves?
Right.
And do they really care?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So if you're not getting the right type of person in your company, to me, it makes sense. You might want to look in the mirror.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And then, it cascades down. I'm often called in to train those frontline managers and middle managers on how to hire, because they've never been taught how to have a behavioral interview, or how to be consistent on the questions. So there's the processes that I find are non-existent. They generally, there's a process maybe over in finance, and there might be one over in customer service, but there's no consistency across the organization. And my belief is those value questions
should be asked for every individual that is coming in to apply for a position.
Yeah, when I tell people when we're putting together, we have a form for this will do, can do, fit factor, which is, very, again, like everything we do, pretty simple. And what we do is we say, okay, here's your values. They are the same on every single hiring form we use in the company.
Yes.
We don't care who it is.
Yep.
Need to have these conversations about the values.
That's the bar that they have to meet.
Well, yeah, I would, a lot of times people say, well, I need someone who can do C++ programming. I say, okay, great. So if you need someone who can do C++ programming, that's a can do. And before you even have the conversation, you go through and make sure that they can do the job from a technical point of view.
Right. Exactly.
And once you get that out of the way, leave it out of the way. And in fact, if you have somebody who's a 9 or a 10 on the can-do factors and a 5 or a 6 versus someone who's a 7 on the technical and a 9 on the values,
right,
you need to be hiring somebody with less skill but a better fit for your company.
Right. And train and develop up.
Right.
Yeah.
But you do need to have some basic skills that come in there.
Yes, obviously. Yeah.
And I keep hearing, especially from, the internet businesses, they're all looking for 100% A players on their team.
Yeah. And guess what? A players, there aren't, there's probably 1 or 2% that are A players. What you want to get is the B players that fit your values and make them A players.
Well, that's true. And the other thing I've learned is that I'm not really convinced I want a lot of A players in my company. I want some.
Yes, because otherwise there's going to be a lot of competition. Yeah.
If your company is full of A players, you've created havoc.
Yeah.
I used to be in a group called Young Presidents Organization a zillion years ago.
I'm familiar with it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, you're an ex-Vistage chair, so you would know about YPO.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I also used to speak at Vistage meetings, but that's a different story.
Okay.
So what we learned, we had this meeting once at the Patriots facility.
Okay.
And they had their vice president of player personnel come out and talk to us. It was a really interesting thing. They said, look, we put people in 3 buckets. We have the people we will never lose no matter what. At that point, Drew Brees was the quarterback.
Okay.
He said, that's Drew Brees, and I forgot who the defensive player was. So then there's the next 8 or 9 or 10 people on our team who we don't want to lose if at all possible. We go to a point where you have to say goodbye.
Right.
And then there's everybody else. And while everybody else comes and goes because they're really sort of interchangeable, it's how well we treat them here that makes them either great members of our team or terrible members of our team.
Yeah.
And I've used that model in companies ever since because it seems to make a lot of sense to me.
It does, and it kind of lends itself to the position of that super salesperson who has been really successful elsewhere.
Yep.
But when he or she gets into your organization, they don't fit those values. And they're great outside because that's their carrot. I need to get that sale. But then when they come back into the organization, they're just horrible to the people internally. Yeah,
well, those people tend to be in. Where you see brilliant jerks often is in technical jobs like programmers or in sales positions.
Yes, exactly.
You rarely see them anyplace else in the company just because nobody tries to hire a brilliant jerk for other jobs.
Right, exactly.
Now, I have had brilliant jerks who were general managers for me also, and that's another area where it can happen.
Yeah.
Long story. I don't want to get into it now because it'll just bore everybody. But the truth is, the sales job, and this is something about sales. One of the things, and I'm going off topic a little bit here, I am not a big fan of personal sales commissions. And the reason is, like anything in any company, nothing happens in a vacuum by itself.
True.
I may have a great salesperson, But that great salesperson is not going to be a great salesperson unless there's a great support team behind them.
You're right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I
So
need
how
to have.
do you do like team comps or?
Well, you can. I tend to like to do company comps. The company is on a bonus plan,
Right.
and how well the company does is how well all the individuals in the company do.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is, when I evaluate the success or non-success of a salesperson, is I want to be looking at the activities that they're doing. Are they doing the right activities in the right way?
Right.
Are they only calling on A customers?
Mm-hmm.
Do they have a methodology or a sales system that we use? Are they following our sales system? Are they doing the things that we know will get us the right customers? Are they evaluating the customers are going to be good customers or bad customers?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all, part of the 5, what are the 5 success factors for a particular job?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I actually think individual sales commissions is just a way for sales managers to be lazy.
Never heard that perspective, but I can understand it.
I mean, the truth is, well, think about this for a second. If somebody's on a commission and they're getting big numbers, the sales manager doesn't have to do anything about making the salesman better. They just say, I've got this superstar salesperson over here. I need to leave them alone, and everybody needs to get out of their way.
Yeah.
If instead I've got success factors for a sales position, and yes, the salesperson, my superstar salesperson's 90% on 3 and 70% on 2, which would make him a superstar in most businesses.
Right.
There's still room for improvement. There's still room for growth.
Yeah.
There's still room for bringing them into other processes. I mean, are they a member of the innovation team?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Too often I see, the innovation people are over someplace doing, their thing, and the salespeople are over here doing their thing, and they never talk to each other.
Yes, I've seen that as well. Yeah.
So, I just have never really seen a need for. I used to be in the life insurance business.
Ah, okay, all right.
Which is that's what I did after I sold my food service company. And that's a world where people are known for being lone rangers and working by themselves, but they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't realize this, but if a life insurance person is selling a very complicated product, they're using the life insurance company's advanced marketing team to support that sale. In other words, this advanced marketing team are the lawyers who say, here's how legally you make these strategies work so you're not getting yourself in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of one of the issues there. So, Beth, we have a couple more minutes, and what I'd like to do is kind of pivot for a second, and talk about the effective onboarding of new employees.
Ooh.
And I'm going to bet you have some thoughts about that.
Yeah, I do. First of all, onboarding to me starts as soon as the individual accepts the offer. It's not the first day that they walk in. That's kind of number one rule. Number two is that it needs to be custom to that person. Now, that doesn't mean like specifically if you've got a customer service person coming on, they need to know all of the ins and outs of the customer service platform, for instance. It's more about the person and the person's personality. So you need to, when you're interviewing them, to really get to understand the person. What may be some of the hobbies? What have they learned through those hobbies? And then when they get there that first day, have something that connects with them. It could be, for instance, the Patriots. Somebody is a big fan. I'm from Boston, by the way, originally. And so you have some sort of Patriots memorabilia waiting for them on their desk, that kind of thing. And then I love having Sherpas or mentors that are assigned to new employees. So there's somebody that they know other than the manager that they can go to understand kind of the ins and outs, the unspoken rules of the organization. And then from a process perspective, onboarding is not just a week. It's a 90, 180 day process. And the manager needs to really understand what are those metrics and benchmarks that the person needs to be meeting to understand that, yeah, they are making progress and we have made the right decision on this individual.
So I'm going to bet that you're in favor of having an onboarding system in place. So there's consistency across the board when new people are added to a company.
Yes, and you know that can be in different formats. For instance, some of the smaller companies I work with, they just have an Excel spreadsheet that they make sure that there are certain things that happen at certain times after the individual comes on board. But
I actually think bullet points are always the best for doing systems.
Yeah.
Anytime you write anything in a paragraph, nobody reads it.
No, exactly. Yeah, but I'm very interested in people's onboarding systems and processes. You know, there's some that have been very creative. I mean, Zappos is a great example where they have, you know, welcome videos and people are really engaged very quickly into the organization.
Yeah, I think Zappos does an incredible job with, you know, the thing I love about Zappos is they will pay you, I think it's what, $5,000 to go away.
Yes, exactly. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, you know, it's really interesting is that we'll have to end it here, but I just want to tell you my little favorite thing about this. When I found out Amazon bought Zappos,
Mm-hmm.
I was absolutely convinced that they were going to destroy Zappos culture.
I think a lot of people did.
As it turns out, it's been the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon has now adopted the pay you a bunch of money to go away after a couple of months and see who takes it.
I did not know that. Interesting.
Yeah, which I found really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So, Beth, unfortunately, we are out of time.
Oh, no.
And yeah. Yeah, 23 minutes goes by fast. I'm going to bet that there are lots of people who are listening to this episode today who are going to be interested or watching this on Facebook Live or on YouTube Live. And I hope those of you who are watching are paying attention. And I'm going to bet that some of these folks are going to want to get in touch with you. So how would they do that?
Well, a couple ways. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Beth Armknecht Miller. Armknecht, ARMKNECHT, which is pronounced Arm Connect, like arm connected to your shoulder. Then you can also reach me on my website, which is executive-velocity.com. I do have an offer out right now during this challenging time, and I'm offering 30-minute complimentary coaching sessions to business owners and leaders who are getting stuck and would like some coaching. So that they can find that on my website as well.
Cool. That sounds great. So I also have a request for you. It's not an offer. I usually have a request, or I usually have an offer, but this time I have a request. And my request is, if you're watching this on Facebook or watching it on YouTube, or you're listening to the podcast episode sometime this summer when it actually comes out, I would really appreciate if you would go to wherever you listen to podcasts and give this show an honest rating and review. Those ratings and those reviews are really important. It helps people find us on all the different listening sites. And we're on Stitcher and iTunes and Spotify and any place else that you might listen to your podcast episode. So after you listen, go over and give us a rating and review, and I would really appreciate it. Hey, this is Josh Patrick. We're with Beth Miller. You're at Cracking the Cashflow Code. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here really soon.